Case of baby Emmanuel. Let's listen in.
Individuals that make statements appear, and then when we're all done with the short statements, I will come back up and we will have a question and answer. I will take questions. I will take all of your questions till there are no more questions. Having said that, there's a lot that we can't say, that I can't say, that nobody up here can say. And the reason is that the defendants in this case have been charged with crimes, serious crimes. And so now they have a presumption of innocence that applies to them. They're innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. I'm not allowed to prove my case in the court of public opinion. And so there's a lot that we can't say in terms of the facts and the evidence. For that, you will have to come to the court and to the various hearings and see how the case plays out. However, having said that, it's appropriate to have a press conference because it was the defendants in this case that had a press conference first. And they did so in order to tell the public, the media, and ultimately law enforcement that their child had been kidnapped, when in fact that's not what occurred. And so we're here to clear up some misconceptions and to explain how this case unfolded in terms of the investigation. It involves two counties working very well together. I know everybody up here on this stage, we work well together normally, but in this case, I'm very proud of the work that was done by Riverside County Sheriff, San Bernardino County Sheriff, my office, and also the District Attorney's Office in San Bernardino County. All right, so we'll go ahead and kick this off. I'm going to bring up first San Bernardino County Sheriff Shannon Dykes.
Thank you, Mike. To Mike's point, I want to thank all of you in the media for covering this, specifically the parents' initial statements to the public while we were trying to find Emmanuel. They became critical as we continued through this investigation. But I want to talk about a little bit about the process because we've seen a number of questions related to Amber Alerts and things like that. So I hope when I finish this that everybody understand kind of the course of the investigation. But the investigation started for us on August 14th. When Rebecca Haro'S reported that her son had been kidnapped. Folks, within 24 hours through video surveillance, we found inconsistencies in Rebecca's statement, and as a result of that, there was no other vehicle to put out on an Amber Alert or anything, and I know many of you were wondering why that didn't occur. But really, after finding out those inconsistencies in the statement on the initial report, that's where hundreds of hours of investigations have come in by our Specialized Investigations Division to try to get to the bottom of what's really going on here. And when I say hundreds of hours, I'm talking about forensic data on vehicles, phones, and potential crime scenes, judicial authorized search warrants that were served. And through that process, that's where we learned that the jurisdiction of where this has occurred was in Riverside County. So hence the Riverside County DA and Riverside County Sheriff's Department, which I can't stress enough. We've had a long-term partnership. We work well together, and we know how to get things done in these environments. But that's why the jurisdiction had changed from the original jurisdiction that was reported in, which is Yucaipa, California. But as we went through that portion of the investigation and realized that these things had happened in Riverside County, you saw the culmination of all the different entities get involved. And going back to what Mike mentioned about the DA's office in San Bernardino County and high-tech crimes, forensically, there are a number of things that we were able to prove up that we're not going to be able to share today exactly how we did that, but there is a tremendous amount of evidence that suggests that the initial story posed was not the correct story. So in that partnership with our agencies, I'm going to introduce my partner, Chad Bianco, where this crossover occurred at Riverside, and we reached out to Mike, who's obviously filing the case, and of course Chad to assist us in the investigation. Chad?
Thank you. Like Sheriff Dykes, I just want to thank all of you for, especially the normal mainstream media, for your attention to this and for your cooperation in this as we were assisting San Bernardino in this investigation, trying to originally find a missing baby, but then eventually quickly learning that that investigation was not something that it started as. Not so much for social media and keyboard warriors who quite honestly sometimes hamper and prevent us from a good investigation. I do want to expand a little bit about our relationship with San Bernardino, a lot from the media, a lot of questions have been raised about jurisdiction. And what Sheriff Dicus and I routinely talk about to our own communities isn't really necessarily displayed in the media or said to the media, but neither one of us care about jurisdiction. Our belief is that the Inland Empire is better served when we are cooperating and working together. And in this investigation from the very beginning, it was obvious that it could involve both counties. When something like that happens, particularly in this case, the original investigation began with Sheriff Dicus, and if he chooses to take it to the end, he will, which obviously he did. And my position is Sheriff Dicus is responsible for this and the assistance of my department. So there is no asking us. There is no anything like that. It is, we have to serve our public best, and he has every single available resource that the Riverside County Sheriff's Office has to offer to make sure that we provide justice in this case. This is an extensive investigation with both agencies that ultimately is headed by the supervisor of the Detective Bureau from the Sheriff's Office in San Bernardino. But the cooperation, as you can see, between the both counties is what is going to bring this to a successful conclusion. There is absolutely nothing, no crime more important than the injury of a human being, particularly a child. And the amount of resources that were expended to find this baby and to ultimately bring the people to justice responsible for the loss of this baby, I can't even tell you the amount of resources that were expended in this. It is a massive investigation that will obviously be ongoing, and we appreciate your efforts. This involves a lot of things, though, from us, and hopefully there are more questions to be answered, but I'll end it by saying this before we get into more questions specifically about this case. This was preventable in numerous ways. The amount of response we have had from the public, the enormous anger that a child was not only originally thought to be kidnapped, but then presumably murdered, kind of warms my heart a little bit. That there is compassion still out there. There is care about other people. There is, people actually do care about other people. There is absolutely nothing worse than harming a baby. Broken bones, injuries, life-altering trauma. And had that case been successfully handled how it should have been, Emmanuel would still be with us today. So I thank you all for taking the time and the effort to make sure that the world sees this investigation, and we will successfully bring it to conclusion with the help of both DA's offices.
Thank you, Sheriff. I neglected to mention that Sergeant Nicholas Clark is the lead investigator on this case. So even though he's San Bernardino County, he will be functioning as the lead investigator on this case, which is ongoing. The investigation is ongoing, even though we have filed charges. And then Brandon Smith is going to be the lead prosecutor on the case, obviously Riverside County prosecutor. And with that, obviously, you all know, yesterday in court, we filed murder charges on both Jake and Rebecca Haro'S. We also filed filing of a false police report. And with that, I will take questions. I know you're going to have a lot of questions. I do want to lay some ground rules. The way we do it here is don't shout at me, no chaos, just raise your hand. I ask you to ask me one question at a time. I'll do my best to call on everybody. When we've gotten through everyone who has a question, then we can go back and ask more follow-ups, okay? So I'll start here on the front row. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Stephanie with CNN. My question is, first of all, do you have any idea where baby Emmanuel is at this point?
You know, yes, we have a pretty strong indication of where the remains of baby Emmanuel are. So that investigation is ongoing at this time. Yes, go ahead.
Matt Johnson, Court TV. What was the information that led to the initial search off the 60 in Moreno Valley?
Sheriff, you want to take that?
I'm not going to go into grave detail about that, but there is some level of cooperation with the suspects involved in this, and we're trying to locate that, and our job is to follow every lead. But for the rest of the room here, we have to understand what you're dealing with is an experienced child abuser that is aware of a previous case, that is aware of evidentiary things that we are certainly concerned with. So we're going to take every step to not only work with any suspect or witness involved in this, because at the end of the day, we have to bring a case to Mike and they have to charge it, and we have to make sure that every single thing, no matter what is told to us or what we discover in terms of evidence, is the right thing, and that we follow it up extensively.
Okay, who's next? I'll go to you first and then to you. Go ahead.
DG Garcia with Fox 11 News. Do you believe you know how baby Emmanuel died or was killed, and is there anything you can share?
The filing in this case reflects our belief that baby Emmanuel was abused, a victim of child abuse over time, and that eventually, because of that abuse, he succumbed to those injuries. That's what we believe. Yes, sir.
Eddie with Action Eye News. I noticed on the arrest records and booking records that they do have Jake Haro'S as murder with malice and also another murder charge as well. Is there a second murderer, or can you explain why there's two on that booking?
We charged both Jake and Rebecca with murder. Who's next? Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
This is in reference to what Kat was talking about, but can you go into some detail about that case in 2023 and what happened there?
Sure.
And from my understanding, it's a suspended sentence.
Yes, I will. So in 2018, Jake Haro'S with his ex-wife, there's another child who they were prosecuted for child abuse as well, child neglect, cruelty. That child was also an infant, and that came to the courts, arrested in 2018. It came in to the courts in 2023. We had charged various felony crimes, child abuse, child cruelty, and our indication or our what we wanted out of the case was prison. We believed it was a prison case, and that Jake Haro'S should have gone to prison. Jake Haro'S pled straight up to the court, which sometimes reporters get this wrong, and you call it a plea bargain. Judges are not allowed to plea bargain. Defendants can plea bargain with the prosecutor, but when a defendant pleads up to the court, they plead to everything that they've been charged with, and they're essentially throwing themselves on the mercy of the court. In this case, a judge here in Riverside County, happened to have been a visiting judge from San Bernardino County, gave Mr. Haro'S a suspended sentence, which means, if I can translate for you what that is, it means that instead of sending him to prison, he chose to give him probation and suspend prison time sort of over his head, meaning that if he violated his probation, he would then go to prison. My prosecutor in the courtroom objected to that and said on the record, we object, we think it's a prison case, you should send him to prison. And the judge decided, as is the judge's right to do in that case, he decided that Mr. Haro'S deserved an extra break and gave him probation and basically 180 days of work release, which ends up being like community service. I will say that it was an outrageous error in judgment by this judge. And I don't have any problem saying that. I'm not attacking the judge personally. That decision was absolutely outrageous. Mr. Haro'S should have been in prison at the time that this crime happened. And if that judge had done his job as he should have done, Emmanuel would be alive today. And that's a shame, and it's an outrage. And I hate to say that, but when our criminal justice system breaks down, I'm going to just call it like it is and tell you it broke down. It's not how it's supposed to work. The judge had obviously meant well. At the end of their sentence, he told Jake, I'm giving you a big break today, don't mess it up. But I want to point something out to you. I want to read to you the injuries. The child's name is Carolina. She is still alive today, but she is permanently bedridden. She has permanent damage, cerebral palsy, that is a result of long-term child abuse. I want to read to you the injuries that were presented in court to this judge at the time of that previous prosecution. Acute fracture of the posterior left rib, fifth rib, healing fractures of the posterior lateral 6th, 7th, and 10th through 12th ribs, healing fractures of the 6th and 9th through 12th ribs, partial bone fracture of the skull, brain hemorrhage, significant prevertebral soft tissue swelling of the neck, and a healing tibia fracture of the right leg. This is severe abuse for an infant. And so whatever you think of the criminal justice system and people need a break, someone who does that to a child belongs in prison, period. Next question.
Can you tell us a little bit about her background? Did she have prior issues or child abuse cases to get her?
Not to my knowledge, no. Yes.
For some experts that looked at how Emmanuel's eyes are and said that is one of the signs of shaky baby syndrome, do you believe that he has been responding the way he's in videos and does have the eye, I guess it is the eye for lack of a better word? Do you believe that he was shaken before that?
You know, I'm not going to, I can't speculate. I'll repeat what I already said. We believe that Emmanuel was severely abused over a period of time, and that that's the reason for the filing, the way it was, is that he was abused over a period of time. Both parents would have been aware of that abuse. I've already called on you, so I'm going to exhaust. Yes, sir.
And you've been listening to a news conference that involved both Riverside and San Bernardino County officials talking about the disappearance of that baby, little Emmanuel, 7 months old. They did mention that Emmanuel had been abused, and they believe that that abuse then led to his death. They also said that they believe they know where his remains are, but have not found them just yet.
Yeah, they obviously couldn't talk a lot about this case, but to hear the details about, what happened and what happened with, the previous allegations and charges against